we'll see. Typhoon, they still have 2 more picks to go on their end of things. Of course, you can have the contest there against the Leshrac, making sure he can't just get online and do Leshrac things. And, well, with a Pugna, that can work out, though. It's not the one hero you'd think of when you think, oh, there's a problem here with the Leshrac being able to push us down, let's go Pugna instead. But I suppose it's going to allow Typhoon to also combat the side of Team Aster and not allow them to just take complete map control.
10 seconds.
I actually think this is a really great response in terms of that Leshrac. Just having that Nether Ward up will mean that the the Leshrac's not going to have the best time trying to spam out his spells. Same goes for the Medusa. You know, that Nether Ward will slowly drain down your mana. And sure, it's not really that massive an amount. It's still going to be good. In fact, if you think about it, the Morphling getting that shift talent at level 20 as well, turning into the Pugna, dropping a second ward, which a lot of people in chat called out every single time we see it. It's really potent. Again, the amount of control you can get on these two heroes that rely on their mana pools to really get stuff done. It's a great counteraction to that. In fact, even the Decrepify alone, to disarm that Medusa, is going to be a big nuisance for Aster to work around.
It certainly is. Still, though, I do get somewhat concerned here for Typhoon, John, because, I mean, even though you do have that Nether Wall that's going to be annoying, it's kind of like you mentioned, the Medusa still does look pretty strong. It's not going to take out that much mana off her. And as it stands, Typhoon, I don't see any direct counters towards the Medusa either.
Yeah, there's really no direct counter like an AM or anything that burns through mana well. You don't have the troll option as well. It's been banned out. You don't really have a space for a pos 1 here, as you already have that Morphling. So you don't really have too much to work with as Typhoon. You're going to have to go for an offlaner with decent control, but they ban out the Batrider themselves. So, it remains to be seen what they do. In fact, yeah, they actually could just run the Doom as their offlane, so you have a Morphling Pugna Doom Tricore, and the last pick pos 4, which is a possibility. It doesn't inspire that much confidence in me. I'll be honest, sure, there is potency in Typhoon's draft, but as it is right now, Aster does look pretty solid. There's no answer to the Medusa Oracle. Once you get that false promise off, is the damage enough to burn down that Medusa? I don't think so.
No, it doesn't seem that way. Typhoon, with this last pick, perhaps going to come up with something, but Darkseer will be the pick for Team Aster now. They look very, very strong indeed. Putting that Morphling in a rather awkward position where he will have to go for those creep kills underneath his tier 1 tower if they opt for the creep skipping. Typhoon, what do you do here? You're on the Radiant side. It's a shame as well, because they banned the OD out on their end of things. And that would have been one of the mid-cores they could have run against the Medusa. That probably would have been okay, but what else do you have left?
It's really hard to say. In all likelihood, it feels like we are staring at Typhoon's Tricore already. The Doom going to be on that pos 3, the Pugna down mid, the Morphling down safe. And I just can't think of anything in that offlane that inspires me to be really confident in whatever they pick, unless they go greedy. Unless they go really greedy, run that Doom as pos 4, Disruptor is 5, get something in the offlane that isn't a traditional offlaner, something that does farm a bit. You really need something to burn through the Medusa. Unless you're going to go Diffusal on the Morphling, that is an option.
Is it?
Not a very common option, but we have, I believe we've seen that at least once before.
I cannot remember that one. I mean, I don't disbelieve you, John. I mean, it's probably happened.
It feels like about a year ago as well, so a very long time ago, to be fair. They go with Sven, so that flexibility is still there for them until the end. Does look like, Guevara's on that Doom. So that is going to be our pos 3 Doom, and pos 4 Sven, looks like, unless I am completely mistaken.
No, I believe you're correct, but that does seem very greedy. That does...
No. Fonte is on pos 1, so that's Core Sven. AQ is on the mid-morph. Guevara is on the offlane Doom. Yeah, it's a support Pugna, which, I'll be frank, I really don't feel confident in. The hero is just way too greedy, right? all his forms of harassment, unless you're really just going to be focused on decrepify annoyance, his main form of damage harassment clears out the wave. So I don't know about that. It's just counterintuitive as a support. It's definitely quite greedy. It needs farm to really come online. I'm not sure how much space there is to be greedy here for Typhoon.
We're about to find out what Typhoon can do here. It doesn't look great. I mean, I don't even have to ask you, John. The draft does look very one-sided right now. For the side of Aster, that is. If Typhoon can get the map control and try to finish this game before that 30-minute mark, I would definitely say they're looking okay. But if we pass that 30-minute mark and they haven't at least taken a Rax, we're probably going to see a repeat of what happened in game number 2 of the last series.
Yeah.
I don't see AQ burning through that much HP and mana from Chuan either.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough time. Again, your main issue is killing off that Medusa. Not just alone, even alone it's going to be an issue, but in the context of the draft, under false promise, how do you kill that Medusa? Just how? It doesn't get easier as the game goes on, and quite frankly, your tools, all your scaling is on that Morphling. So it's going to be hard to... I'm sure the Sven scales, but not as easily, and it's going to be prone to kiting as well.
I mean, look, you've still got the Doom, who's going to be able to probably jump the Oracle, maybe get the Doom off in time and not allow the false promise, but then again, if Q just positions himself perfectly, you're not going to have that opportunity, so we're going to have to wait it out and see. That's really the end of that. Like, there's no way to tell at this point. Aster, though, it already feels like their game to lose here. They already have gone for a very quick smoke, and it's a very aggressive one at that. They place a very deep Observer Ward. What is that Observer Ward?
It's to watch on the jungle. I think they kind of expect perhaps the Doom Guevara to start dipping in and farming later on if the lane gets too hard. And that should allow them to scout that out and punish his jungling. Punish the movements there. Maybe the response down there as well. Again, they are running a pretty heavy, pretty greedy strat on Typhoon's side. Warding up that jungle enables them to find out if there are stacks as well. So if they know there's a stack, they can clear it out themselves. They can walk the camps later on. And suddenly your investments towards getting that Sven bigger is not going to be working out too well.
Well, a 2-for-2 banner rune start, so again, starting off very evenly. It's like Cat U will be in that off lane and does plan to be very aggressive towards XXS on the darks here. Because as it stands right now, they are planning to run what looks like a tri-lane in this off lane here for Typhoon. That will secure the farm for the Sven, but in terms of levels for these supports, it's going to be a bit of a struggle for them. The KU, he will rotate over. That's fair enough.
Yeah, they definitely needed to. Again, you're not going to be able to maintain the EXP you want on all of your supports if you run that tri-lane. We saw it before, and it really punishes quite hard.
KU getting caught out already. They try to go for a body block, but they won't find it. But Baboka, he could probably just chase for this. Salve will be thrown out, however, so KU ends up surviving. But this is that tri-lane that Aster's running. It's just so potent. If they catch you out with the Burrow Strike and the Fortune's End to follow up, it's going to be extremely hard to get away, let alone if Jay's behind you with a Diabolic Edict.
Definitely so. I do like seeing this aggression early on from Aster. They know they have stronger potential lanes and stronger synergy with all the control they have early on. They do look to maximize it, and again, forcing CatU to go down bot, that's kind of freed up that top lane. XXS should have a better time up against Fonte without the harass coming out from this Pugna.
Certainly so. Faith can do some decent work with the Thunderstrike, but eventually that starts to get a bit old as well. XXS probably will just start spamming Iron Shells. That KU's trying to dish out some harassments there towards Q, but pretty hard to actually keep him away from this bot lane. In fact, Q may get jumped here. KU, Fortune's End will be there. Guevara thinking about helping out. Both sides will be okay. We'll quickly have a look at the mid lane, because Chuan is there up against AQ on that Morphling. It does appear to be going Chuan's way, however, and this is to be expected. You put a Morphling up against the Medusa. There's just nothing the Morphling can do to stop this Medusa from farming. And just hold that thought, John, because bot lane, Cat U now is being chased down, and well, he does end up surviving in the end. How long can he stick around here? It looks like they will bring Guevara back into the lane as well. But this doesn't seem to work very well for Typhoon at all.
The one thing that Typhoon is at least getting is they are starving out the supports from Aster. Like, we do still, Q is stuck in level 1. They managed to get that courier as well.
Yeah, XXS was not microing it very well and does get taken out very easily. Of course, it isn't a flying courier quite yet either, so they weren't able to just make it immune. You were saying that at the very least the supports are being starved out here from Aster.
Yeah, like, again, the supports on Aster sides do want some EXP as well. You want that Oracle to at least hit 4.
Guevara. Fortune's End will be there. They won't be able to kill him off though. Well, looks like XXS may end up falling top lane, and he does! First blood will be going to the way of Typhoon. Fonte will go ahead and pick that one up on the Sven. This is very, very important for them to try and get a significant lead throughout this early to mid game. Just to try and make sure that Chuan cannot keep free farming on the Medusa.
Yeah, that's going to be the key issue here for Typhoon, keeping that Medusa in check. Again, we saw it in the last game of Aster. As long as Chuan gets his farm and his hero, of course he's going to be online at a decent time, he's going to set pace, and he's going to deal the damage. Now, you can do the same thing on Typhoon's side. Your Sven should be able to accelerate faster and take these fights earlier on, but he is susceptible again to being kited around, and that does become a very pertinent issue as the game goes on, mainly because Medusa's Stone Gaze does get really wacky as you approach the later parts of the game.
Very least for Typhoon, it looks like XXS has just left the lane completely now. In fact, Faith will not leave XXS alone, just continues chasing him down. Limp's back as well. XXS not able to surge away, and Faith just going to continue harassing him like this, just wasting so much time from this Darkseer. Fonte actually rotating over as well, so wants to go for this kill, it seems like. They won't have the opportunity to do so. He will just shrine up in the end. Fonte already having a Midas up as well now on the Sven. And this is going to be, I guess, the saving grace here from Typhoon. I mean, we talked about how much of a disadvantage they were at because of this draft, but this Sven, he could make so much work happen.
He definitely can, and Typhoon is going to be betting on Fonte to set that momentum mid-game for them. It's been a while since we've seen a Darkseer have a really rough start, but this is definitely not a very smooth start for XXS, and he certainly is copying a lot here. And look at that, Fonte just pops the God Strand, of course, and just goes to town in this creep wave, and suddenly XXX just can't go up. He can't even drop the Iron Shell.
They are playing this matchup very well. I mean, bot lane, though, they have started pushing in with that Diabolic Edict, so they took about half HP off the T1 tower. One of those things where you kind of almost expect it to happen just a bit faster here from Aster. In fact, XXS now. Careful, Faith. Being very aggressive again on that Disruptor. Fonte will do about half the HP of that T1 to the top tower as well. Meanwhile, mid though, Baboka will rotate in onto AQ. Morphling though should be perfectly fine, honestly. I don't see a kill really occurring here. So XXS will get Glimpse Black up at the top lane. Stormhammer will come in. Fonte will go ahead. Well, actually, it was Faith that picked up the kill, but they do find it on the Darkseer in the end.
Yeah, and again, this is a rough time for Aster up top. They're just not slowing the Sven down. We usually see Darkseers be a bit more influential in the lane, really setting the tempo there. But XXX just hasn't found that space there. He hasn't found the time to apply that pressure, and he has been trying. He's been trying to creep cut, but Fate is constantly on him, punishing him for every move. So it has secured Fonte that great start again. Really good timing on that Midas, as you mentioned earlier on. Gonna have his power treads up soon. And then he can really accelerate in that jungle much earlier on than Chuan can.
Again, XXS. Just getting forced back here by Faith. He's still only at level 5, considering he was in solo lane. Definitely a really bad start for this Darkseer, but just great play here from Faith. Not making him feel comfortable in the jungle either. He will run towards the east side jungle, and looks like that'll be his home for a while. But he knows he'll be a bit safer there, but does just leave Fonte to freely farm up. In fact, MLPDotA will go up on the Sand King, so it looks like at the very least they will be able to get some XP and farm on the Sand King now. But if Fonte finds the jump, he's almost level 8 in comparison to the level 4, I believe, of the Sand King, so that won't be the hardest matchup in the world for Fonte. And meanwhile, bot lane, looks like there is a bit of a chase going on here for Q or J. They do find the glimpse off onto Q, and this should be an easy kill on the Oracle, considering he doesn't have False Promise available. Guevara will go ahead and pick that one up. That'll make it a 3-0 with a 2k net worth lead for Typhoon.
And Typhoon is working their draft out quite well. Again, you want to see this early aggression. You want to see that early push coming out here for the boys at the Radiant side. And that's mainly down to playing on a timer. It's always the case when you're playing against Medusa. If you're not shutting her down, you're playing on a very hard timer. And even though you do have some skill ability, again, with that Morphling, with the Sven even, you do have some nice ways of keeping up in damage. The Medusa is still something that you cannot really afford to hold out on. So seeing this kind of play from Typhoon is pretty much what they need.
Well, they're going for a jump now onto Fonte top lane. It looks like that should be an easy kill. The Vac back into the Fortune Zen, and Jay will go ahead and clean that one up. But it did cost them 4 heroes to rotate up to do that. That'll leave that bot lane available now to be pushed in by Guevara and Cat U. And it looks like they may just settle for the top tier 1 tower here for the side of Aster. But it does go to show how desperate they were to find that Sven kill.
Yeah, they're definitely in a spot where, you know, they'll have to really commit all the heroes they can to find these pickoffs. And on something as pivotal as that Sven, I think it's definitely worthwhile, right? Fonte has had a ridiculous runaway start so far. Keeping him in check means that Typhoon will have a harder time applying that mid-game momentum they need.
Bannerings up at the top lane. Going to be contested quite hard. Fonte jumps in straight onto Jay. He does have the God Strength and throughout the stun. Now the Doom comes out as well. They get the glimpse back and Jay is gone. They'll go after XXS next. Guevara, he had an ensnare available, so he will root up XXS. He's gone as well. You actually just forced to deny a banner off Guevara on that Doom, but easy pickoffs. Like, there was literally nothing to it.
Yeah, and again, that's just down to this beautiful power spikes Typhoon has in their lineup. They come in line quite fast, and again, it feels like they're buying a lot of space right now, mainly for Chuan. They've left him alone down mid. He's had a pretty good start of his own, second on the network board, but not quite up there with his Sven yet. And again, that's just down to the investment you need on the Medusa before she really escalates in farm. It's still going to be a while until you can play catch-up.
Well, they found Q again. There's no way for him to survive this, and he will end up losing his life. A tier 1 for a tier 1 trade, though, Aster, they did find the mid-tier 1, which is definitely a bit more valuable. It doesn't look like Typhoon plan to stop, though. They do move towards that tier 2 tower now. They realize how much stronger they are on the side of Aster, so if they can force out a defense attempt, they'll probably just end up finding another kill or two, to be honest with you, as long as Fonte feels like jumping in. Now, mind you, he does have 15 seconds for God's Strength to be back up. Guevara, though, Burrow Strike will come out from MLPDotA. Now the dust is there from Faith, however, so he can't just stand there with his Sandstorm, and he will lose his life. It's that simple.
Yeah, and again, it's just the response from Typhoon, having the resources at hand to know, you know, they carry the dust consistently to make sure to scout out that Sand King. They apply the right amount of pressure, and they even managed to get that pushback on bot lane. So, overall, so far, Typhoon is working their draft out quite well. 7-1, massive kill lead, and a 2k lead in terms of net worth for the side of Typhoon. does set them up for a good start into that mid game. I think the next things they do have to wait for is maybe one key item on the Sven. The Echo Saber looks to be what they are waiting for into the Blink, and by then you should see Typhoon much more aggressive than they currently are.
They are smoking up already. Looks like they were having a look there for Jay down to the bot lane, but Jay has gone to the jungle now. They won't find that. See, most of the Aster boys are up the top lane now, just farming the jungle. Doesn't leave much space, though, for the Medusa. Chuan is forced to kind of start stacking Ancients for himself, it looks like. But this is one of those things, right? You have so many heroes behind on the Aster side that they have to share farm like this. With a Medusa that just needs the farm, needs all the jungle basically to himself, it's not the greatest of news here.
It definitely isn't, but again, what can you do? As you mentioned, just how far behind Aster is on their cores. Like, this Darkseer is at 3.3k net worth. 3.3k. Not a great sign, just slightly above that Sand King. And that's really not where you want to be as a Darkseer. You want that early mana boots, maybe the early mech, into Guardian Greaves for added durability and added push potential, maybe a Blink. Any of those items, and it's not the easiest to farm up. You gain a lot of that initial farm from that laning phase with your Iron Shell, but in XXS's case, he just had no room for that, and it didn't pay off for him.
Another smoke from Fontaine Faith, again, just trying to find a target. It feels like they've probably used about 2 minutes worth of time now just trying to smoke up and find targets, but they will be avoided again. Meanwhile, the side of Aster, though, they've smoked up, and it looks like they are going to find AQ on that Morphling. He does show himself down at the bot lane. It's just a matter of whether they can stun him up long enough. But they hit the Burrow Strike, now the Split Earth, and he just melts. I mean, he had so much agility morphed over that they just literally killed him in 2 spells.
Yeah, that's the one saving grace from Aster's draft. They have an immense amount of magic damage, of course, coming out from that Lesh. Even from the Oracle and the Sand King, it's pretty... It all piles up to be quite big, and if you're not careful as this Morphling, if you're caught out like that, you will really just melt. I mean, you only have 600 HP when you fully morph Agi. So it's something you really have to be cautious about and on top of.
Nice back wall there from XXS. The Static Storm does come down. It will stop them from pursuing any further, though. XXS, he pops the drums. It won't mean anything. Jay, he tried to come in time as well. They've lost that top tier 2 tower, meanwhile. Fonte, he ended up finishing it off. They'll lose the top banner runes. Boca luckily was there to grab the bottom ones, though, but it was a great vac wall, John. It was just the Static Storm Kinetic Field came out straight away. Chuan popped the Stone Gaze. It just didn't matter, though, because they didn't have a way to really hold them down long enough.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great opening from Aster, but you need Boboka there. You need that stun, and that's the one issue, again, with their draft. They just have no hard lockdown beyond that Sand King Burrow Strike, and when he's not there, you just can't hold him down. You have a great root on the Oracle, but sometimes a root isn't enough. You definitely need Boboka to be around when you land those massive combinations. And, you know, to be fair, if everything works out for Aster, you have some massive synergy there with that Darkseer. You have a closer gap, easier to land the Leshrac stun, easier to land the Sand King stun, and you just have so much more control in that tight area. All of your spells really benefit. The issue is, sometimes you make decisions like that and you have to make that move. It doesn't pay off. Mainly because, again, you don't have the follow-up.
Well, Fonte, he'll go ahead and pick himself up a double damage rune, and does have a Blink Dagger coming out on the Courier now as well. So he'll have that initiation for his team available. Looks like they do want to pursue for that tier 1 mid, and Cat U has already gotten started with the Pugna. Looks like Jay will rotate over, but look at Fonte. He's ready to initiate whenever necessary. Jay gonna run up the hill. That is not the greatest of ideas. He does get jumped, and Fonte will just burst him down with Guevara. Now Guevara just searching the backlines. They find Chuan, but they'll go for the others instead. XXS, they want to doom him up, and they do get the doom off. The glimpse was not great, though it may not even matter, because Fonte is here now, and look how hard he's hitting. They will false promise, but he is definitely going to end up dying here on the Darkseer. Meanwhile, the backline's Maboka will go in with the Burrow Strike. They're still chasing the false promise. Darksea, I mean, he was definitely dead. They could have found more, but now they've lost KU and the Pugner, and it looks like Faith will also be lost here. Maboka is there with Q, and bit of a mistake there, to be honest with you, John. Typhoon. I don't know why they kept chasing the Darkseer like that. It does feel like they could have let him be, because they knew where Q was on the Oracle. Nevertheless, though, they do still find some decent pickoffs.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, you really just trade your support for the offlaner, so it's still a pretty big win for Typhoon, and again, kind of cementing their lead in at 4K net worth right now. Mainly being tied up in that Sven this time around, of course, Fonte.
Yeah,
Again,
Jay.
working himself up and almost finds that kill.
Yeah, it certainly does. About 90 HP left on Jay on the Leshrac. Didn't have enough damage, it seems. Funny as well to see, like, Typhoon, they've gone for Midas builds on both the Sven and the Doom against the Medusa. That does feel a bit overly confident.
It definitely does, and, you know, it's something that they have to be a bit aware of. But there is a smoke coming out now from Aster's side, 3-man smoke, and honestly, this might be enough. They have great magic damage. As long as they manage to land their stuns, they should be able to at least find a pickoff.
They are going towards that top lane. They spawn out Guevara. Guevara actually has absolutely no mana to deal with this, and he gets fortunate. Then with the Burrow Strike from Maboka, it's an easy kill for Q on the Oracle. Still, 4K net worth lead does remain for Typhoon, but that was a 1K gold change going to Aster, just from one kill.
Yeah, and again, you don't want to be bleeding that gold back to the way of Aster. You don't want them to give them. You don't want to give them a way to come back in with their Medusa, because we saw it in the last game. You just end up lacking control in the Medusa, and the key timings here for Typhoon will be their BKBs. I think once Fonte does have that BKB, you can afford to have him really start these fights again, relentlessly, non-stop fighting, because there's no way to control him as of yet.
Radiant's top tower is under attack.
Well, there will be a smoke coming out from the side of Typhoon now. They might run into J and Q here, though. Can they find him? Looks like Faith does have a glimpse available, just needs to keep the vision up. Doesn't have the vision at the moment, though. Jay, he's going to walk away from this. See, they had the option as well. Like, Fonte, he had the blink available. He could have blinked stunned. It looks like he wanted to wait for Faith to get a glimpse off, though. Those are those little mistakes you can't afford to make up against this Aster draft. You're buying more time for Chuan, who just keeps free farming. He's almost going to have an Eye of Skadi up soon.
Yeah, and again, you just can't afford to have those kinds of rotations. You don't find the pickoffs you need, and it's also time spent that you're not farming. So you are giving a lot away to Aster with that kind of move, and again, you don't want this lineup to bounce back. We saw it in the last match Aster played. If they get room to bounce back, they bounce back hard.
Jumps in onto KU, though. There was a glimpse there onto Jay. He dropped the Static Storm and then glimpsed Jay, and took him out of the Static Storm, and it will allow him to get out, though. So it looks like that's all they wanted. They just want to dissipate from that engagement without losing anything. We haven't looked at AQ for a while. He does have the full Ethereal Blade up now on the Morphling. But it does seem like Typhoon are going into this late game. Like, they are set to just go late.
I mean, I can see where their confidence is coming from. Of course, Morphling does scale fine into the late game. Sven is also kind of known for having great skill in the late game once you go with more crit items, of course. But my issue is controllability against that Medusa, right? When she pops that Stone Gaze, you cannot even hope to man fight, because if you stare too long, of course, you're going to be frozen up and Medusa will eat right through you. And I think as you approach that late game, you really just can't. Every single time Chuan will engage, you will either be trying to run away or, you know, hoping you burn through that mana, but again, we've seen it time and time again. The damage just tends to not be there, and you have to consider Q is there as well on that Oracle to heal up. So even if you manage to somehow burn through the mana shield, you have to work your way through all the heals and sustain that Aster has elsewhere.
Will be a smoke again coming out from Typhoon now with 4 heroes smoked up. Looks like they might try to use AQ as bait in the mid lane. AQ about 1k away from the BKB recipe, but they're going to go in, and Chuan gets caught out, though he is okay. He walks out of the Static Storm with the Stone Gaze, and now Fonte trying to deal the damage, but he gets stoned up. They do throw the Ethereal out, but he cops no damage. It's just a bit of mana taken off, and now Fonte, he'll end up going down. Chuan turns around straight onto AQ. He's trying to make a run for it, and he'll be okay on the Morphling. Meanwhile, XXS was being chased by Guevara underneath the T4 towers. And Guevara is going to pay for this with his life.
Oh.
That's, yeah. What happened to Typhoon? I mean, the early game was so good for them. But now Aster just winning out every little engagement they have.
They held out too long. Their targeting really was a bit iffy. They popped their 10-second BKBs for an engagement that nets them nothing but deaths on 2 cores. And they're going to lose their tier 2 here. Probably. They do pop that Fortify, and respawn timers are still short at this point in the game. But Chuan hits pretty good now with that Scotty up. So the tower isn't going to be long for this world. And again, they are just giving way too much time for Aster to come online. We're going to see Chuan hit 19. And then at level 20 is going to be out. And I think the smart play here would be the Stone Gaze duration, simply because it counteracts the BKB. When these 2 cores pop the BKB, they want to man-fight Medusa, but under Stone Gaze, they can't face her. So it's going to be pertinent you have that control on Aster's side, and again, as that game goes on, this Medusa just becomes a bigger and bigger issue. Sure, you have the disarm. Sure, you have that E-Blade. Sure, you have a right-click damage from the Sven. Did it look like it scratched Medusa there? They didn't even burn through the shield.
This is the point we were bringing up in the drafting phase. Like, they were always going to be behind if it started to reach this point. We're about 5 minutes off that 30-minute mark that I was talking about. Even before then, it just... Juan's only going to get worse. I mean, he's going to have a Butterfly coming up next on this Medusa. When an Ethereal Blade on the Morphling, like, that's what they were farming this whole time on AQ, but it just made no difference. The BKB certainly going to help him do stuff in the engagements, just trying to stay alive, but not going to be able to deal with, still not going to be able to deal with Chuan with that. Make matters worse, 3 bounty runes now going to Aster, but a bit more of a gold influx for them. We'll see if Typhoon can catch themselves a break. Like, the one thing is, though, they can't just jump on Chuan like that. Like, you saw that last team fight, you throw down the Static Storm, you don't even catch him in the Static Storm. Then the rest of the heroes are just allowed to roam free. Like, you need AQ to jump in there with the Ethereal Blade, right? And just shotgun Oracle down or something before the team fight starts.
For sure, that's really the ideal way to start it. In fact, I'm not sure why they didn't do Chuan anyway. The fact that he managed to get that Stone Gaze off really delayed the fight long enough that they just couldn't find those kills. And the key thing is going to be controlling this Medusa up. Because if you can do that, if you can keep Chuan constantly disarmed with the Decrep, if you can keep him constantly, you know, in check and just under control, then he really can't do too much. But at the same time, if you don't commit anything on this Medusa, well, what do you really expect?
Fonte gonna be trying to farm up a Daedalus now, it seems, on the Sven. AQ, hey, he's queued up a I Am Skadi on the Morphling now. Again, it just seems to be this kind of game where both teams have just been farming for 26 minutes. I mean, it's 9-7 now. The net worth lead is still Typhoon's way by 1k. So they have that. But I still do not see any answers for Chuan. I'm waiting for an item like maybe a Nullifier. Just make sure he can't BKB up. Well, he doesn't even have one anyway, but maybe just make sure he can't Manta. You know, the Eye of Skadi won't be as useful while the Nullifier's up. I'm not sure what you can do against this man. Perhaps even just getting Halberds. Just make sure he's just disarmed the whole time.
I mean, they don't even need a halberds. They have the decrep. Remember, Mike? They have that decrepify. They have the E-blade up to stop the right-click damage. But how do you follow up? They don't have enough magical burst to maximize those two. And when it comes to just physically man-fighting, again, they just don't match up yet. Perhaps they will if the Sven does build into something like a Daedalus. And he is building up towards a Bloodhorn instead, but that works just fine. And he will smoke up. Maybe this jump is what they need.
They scanned them out. Though it doesn't seem like Aster are ready for this. It looks like they know. MLPDotA just going to sit in the tree line. Now Fontaine. Smoke gets broken and you can't move up like that. MLPDotA just perfect positioning from him. And that's going to mean Aster just, again, just keep farming up on Chuan. No answer.
Ooh.
Absolutely no answer yet.
That's the Butterfly of Chuan done up as well. So as soon as this courier does get to him, he's going to have that Butterfly up.
Oh, they're going to start a team fight as well. They wanted to Doom off though. No, they jump in. And actually, Fontaine doing a lot of damage right now. He takes down Q. They've got J as well. Now, that's the start they needed. XXS, he's been doomed up. He's going to get taken down. Chuan, he's still trying to fight this. I'm not sure about that from him. Looks like AQ will be alright as well. Now the Static Storm coming out. They will find AQ thanks to Chuan. And of course, MLPDotA on the Sand King. I thought that was the team fight start they needed. I mean, they got rid of the Oracle. The only problem was he just bought back. They got rid of the Leshrac as well. He didn't buy back, but it didn't matter. Still, Typhoon, they come out on top of the team fight. They only lost the Morphling. But somehow, they're the ones still losing a Roshan right now.
I'm really curious as to what goes through their mind when they go with these Doom initiations. They always go on XXS's Darkseer. And I don't think he's the pivotal point here.
Well, the Roshan's being taken. Decisions have to be made. The back wall is still available, which is going to be pretty annoying for Typhoon, and it looks like they will just let it go. It's kind of like you can't really let it go like that, but then at the same time, if you fight, you're probably going to get wiped. I mean, you just used most of your ultimates, in fact, all of them basically, in that last team fight, so you have no choice. But look at this, they run in now. Guevara, he missed the stun though, and Chuan, he's dealing a lot of damage. Decrepify will save Guevara for the moment, though the chase is still happening, and it's just Chuan chasing at the moment. Kinetic Field will come out as well, and that'll stop the chase. The only thing that saves them throughout these teamfights is these Decrepifiers and the Ethereal Blade. If Chuan goes ahead and just picks up a VKB though, all that saving grace is pretty much just gone. In fact, Chuan is going to take a tier 2 tower now up at the top lane. That is the final outer tower for Aster, and they're not going to stop. They have the Aegis. Why not just keep going?
Yeah, I really can't blame them for this move, and you know, it should be a fairly straightforward push. They do have pretty decent ways of deep pushing, but you really gotta respect this Medusa. Like, you have to watch out for that right click. It's just massive right now.
That Mystic Snake just gave him full HP, although Fontaine jumps in. Now Guevara again gets the Doom off onto XXS. They're going after the Oracle, the Decrepify, keeping him alive, and now they found Fontaine, but the 4 stuff will be nice. Static Storm keeping everyone inside. They've lost Q. That's the Oracle down as well as J. Fontaine, though, may lose his life, and he does. XXS still alive and still has the back wall as well. It's going to be a 3v4, but look, it's the side of Aster that are moving forward. They've got 1 hero less, but they don't care.
I mean, they're playing around their cooldowns. The Sven can only match the Medusa when that God Strength is up. When it's down, even if he buys back, what damage is there?
Oh, this Decrepify doing so much work, but Guevara jumps in by himself. He doesn't have a Doom to throw out anymore. They will Decrepify him up at the back wall. It comes out. It connects on 3 as well. Guevara, the life drain, going to keep him alive from the Pugna. Chuan, I mean, there is an AQ morphed into the Medusa, which I guess does tend to work with the Mana Shield, but you still lose a Rax. They know they can't engage. Chuan is just going to walk out of there safely.
Yeah, and again, it's down to that timing. We are starting to see the lower duration BKBs coming out as well. So they're not going to be comfy jumping in while Medusa has that Stone Gaze up. In fact, they're not comfy anyway. But you're starting to run out of time where you can really just get free damage in.
Oh no. Faith moved forward, but what about a glimpse? Unfortunately for him, Chuan and Baboka were happy to walk back in and claim his life. Now they'll go ahead and finish the shrine off as well. Mind you, Chuan just picked up an MKB for himself. So the butterfly, if it does come out on AQ, isn't going to matter anymore. And they might just go for another tier 3 tower. They still have the Aegis. Like, why the hell not?
Yeah, at the very least now, Typhoon does have that God Strength up. So they can deal the damage back if they do get a proper initiation.
The one saving grace for Typhoon does seem to be the Decrepit Fire. It just keeps on doing work. The only problem is when you have Fortune's End, it's not going to be as effective. One. Lotus Orb, of course, dispelling the Decrepit Fire once again. And, well, Guevara jumps in, but he has to BKB up. Diabolic Edict still doing a lot of damage, and there's Chuan with the right clicks. It looks like the Crimson Guard will keep him safe. Yeah, he doesn't throw out Doom at all. Now, well, Fonte, he'll go into the backlines and he will try to start something, but he is going to die. The Decrepify again, saving his life, but maybe not for long. He is gone. The buybacks are out, but they just, again, they have no answer. I feel like a broken record saying it over and over again, but they have absolutely no answer.
They tap out.
They have to.
And again, it's down to that Sven. Sure, you have the damage. You saw that. The BKBs were up. They jump in. They don't doom anyone. They don't stun anyone. And they don't do the damage. So what's the point?
I don't know, John. I was hoping you'd tell me.
I mean, that was a good showing from Typhoon. They had the early lead. It looked like they were keeping a lot of cores from Aster in check, but the one core that mattered, that Medusa, had a free run. They kept XXS severely poor that entire time.
Okay, can we be critical for a second, though?
Yeah.
We go back to the early game, right? They had a great start on Typhoon. Then you saw two Midases come up. One on Guevara, one on Fonte. And I did point out that was a pretty greedy option to go for against the Medusa draft. That was a better draft than what they had. Do you think that's where they went wrong? Because we talked about the fact that they needed to finish this game early. They opted to go for the late game for some reason. And we saw them with no answer.
They took their time. They took way too much time there. And even when AQ had that E-Blade up, man, what was that, 20 minutes in? It's a great timing, but when they went on that jump, and you saw the damage it did to Chuan, it did no damage. The shield was up. And at that point, it was like, man, I think the itemization definitely played a big part. That Midas and Fonte slowed him down too much. The E-Blade was just not the item here. You really needed to somehow match the right-click damage of the Medusa because Fonte Sven relies too much on God Strength. And when that's out, when the BKB's gone, he's just going to be kited round. You needed AQ to really just play right-click, but with E-Blade, you're a burst hero, and your right-click doesn't scratch Chuan enough. You needed something like a Diffusal. You needed to build the Morphling like a troll. I think going something like an SNY and Diffusal would have actually worked out.
Well, with that, John, we will move on to game number 2 very, very soon, ladies and gentlemen, between Typhoon and Aster. It is, of course, MLPDotA and johnxfire. Hopefully the wait won't be too long this time around for game number 2. Won't be long.